It was really an awful moment. But when you see it on the television...
Jack,
did you know anything was going wrong?
it was brilliant. Didn't notice.
He didn't know a thing.
There you go. So the crowd was happy.
So there you go.
Tell us a little bit about the album, because it's been a little while. Is that right, Chris? And what was the moment when you went, do you know what, we got stuff?
Well,
put it out.
as Neil said, I didn't realise we were making an album. I was just writing music, sending it to Neil. He was sending music back to me, and we were just having a really nice time writing music. And then one day Neil said, well, I think the album's finished. And he'd even sequenced it, the whole thing. He was like...
So
It's like a stealth album.
It was. I was like, I didn't realise we'd even started. So I suppose for the nicest way to make a record when you don't actually know you're doing it.
Well, also, because actually, although it's a flippant point, it's a serious point too, because music has come out of sort of pleasure, not under some deadline or a contractual thing or something. We were really, really enjoying it. And I think there's
having a really nice time writing music. And then one day Neil said, well, I think the album's finished. And he'd even sequenced it, the whole thing. He was like...
It's like a stealth album.
It was. I was like, I didn't realise we'd even started. So I suppose for the nicest way to make a record when you don't actually know you're doing it.
Well, also, because actually, although it's a flippant point, it's a serious point too, because music has come out of sort of pleasure, not under some deadline or a contractual thing or something. We were really, really enjoying it. And I think there's a freshness to this album, which is also to the production by a guy called James Ford, but that really comes out of it because of that, because the circumstances it was written in.
Can I share a reflection with you? I'm old enough to remember watching right at the beginning in the early 80s when you were performing, over the years.
Mid-80s. Yeah.
Mid-80s. And my impression was that you were both very serious, you a little bit almost intimidating, very clever.
It was intimidating.
The word is erudite.
Erudite.
And I don't even know what it means.
No, and there was just something.
Sure,
there was a kind of an aura around you both, particularly about you. That was just like, oh. Was that kind of? Because I know, because we've been here. You're very funny people, and you're very charming. And was there an image thing that you were trying to create, a kind of a mystique around, or am I kind of trying to burst the bubble now?
There were two things. One, we did strongly influenced by dance music, and we're trying to separate ourselves from that. So we do present quite a stern image, semi-deliberately, but it's also making the most of what we are.
Were you separate then from those acts as well? Like, because we talked to them and they're all, yes, see so-and-so, we're all kind of half in touch and we all hung out. What was it like for you in the 80s?
Well, remember, in that period, the first half of the 80s, I was a journalist for Smash Hits magazine. So from those musicians' perspective, I was a guy who used to interview them, and then suddenly was number one in America with the Pet Shop Boys. So it was probably more odd for them than it was for me. But we were definitely a different thing, and then a lot of dance music came into the charts at the same sort of period, and that initial wave of the 80s sort of faded a bit.
Chris, you're a qualified architect, is that right?
Not quite.
You're an unqualified architect.
Yes, you wouldn't employ me.
You've got both degrees, though.
I did 5 years of it, and I did the BA and the B-Arch. But to qualify, you've got to work for a year and then do Part 3.
OK, so you basically are, but you haven't done it.
No.
What do you think of the place? What do you think? You have a look
I think,
around?
actually, it's amazing what's happened around here, isn't it? I mean, look at it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And why was the success kind of kicked in, did it? So you were able to...
Well, actually, I sort of... when I went back to do the B-Arch, the Pet Shop Boys was happening, and I was sort of flying off to New York at the weekends to record with Bobby Orlando at Times Square, and it was so exciting doing all of that. It was very difficult to come back to Liverpool and carry on doing architecture, so I sort of slightly lost interest towards the end of the course, really, because the Pet Shop Boys was beginning to happen.
But didn't you say when you were doing like a tutorial, they would ask you about the Pet Shop Boys?
Oh, it wasn't a tutorial. It was the final handing of the work, and the examiners came along, and they seemed more interested in the music than anything else. I actually managed to scrape through with very little work, actually, to be honest.
Well, we won't have...
But we won't do that because I won't encourage that.
Obviously, you have to work very hard.
I think you should.
With the new music now, the new album, I think there is an essence, like, it's the Pet Shop Boys. Do you have to work at that, or is that just, it's inevitable?
I think we have to work at not making it like that.
Oh, that wasn't a criticism. I like the fact that I know it's...
No, I didn't take it as a criticism. I think that's what we instinctively sound like. I think it's a combination of music and the voice. And we do try to change the sound. I think if we made a heavy metal record, people would say, there they go, typical Pet Shop Boys. It's, there's something we do to do with the style of chords, and there's always a sort of rich chord progression, and my vocals that creates that.
So many of your hit songs over the years are kind of markers on people's lives, moments in time, significant things. Do you have people sharing those kind of stories with you, saying, oh, that song reminds me of...
We do. We even have it in our sort of circle of people we work with, people who've got... Ez Devlin, quite famous stage designer now, met her husband working on the Pet Shop Boys musical. And actually, there's actually, each of those songs brings back a lot of memories and back in the time. And of course, it's so many decades now, which seems sort of amazing. So it's like that for us as well.
Chris, does it all come back, you know, when you do the older stuff, is it all just like completely instinctive? It's all embedded in the kind of muscle memory?
Sadly not. I have everything on the computer screen because I can't remember anything. And even we do Paninaro, which is I do a very little minor vocal on, which is only 6 words, and I have them written down.
Do you really?
Yep. And when they come in as well, so none of it is instinctive for me.
That's honest.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd do that.
I don't make any mistakes. I'm sight reading the whole show.
I always think it's amazing that classical musicians, if you're playing a violin concerto, the orchestra have got sheet music. You're playing the violin concerto or piano concerto, whatever, you have to memorise the whole thing.
I know.
I don't know how they do it.
I know it. It's been so lovely talking to you.
Is it over?
Nice.
I'm sorry.
It's over.
We could have chatted for a long
Could
time.
have done.
Can we not hit a red button and carry on?
Nonetheless, but I like the way you did that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless,
Nonetheless, the album.
The album name is...
And is it 5 nights at the Royal Opera House?
5 nights at Royal Opera House. We're also playing in Belfast for the first time in 33 years. Nottingham, Manchester, Glasgow, Birmingham, Europe. So, yeah.
Enjoy.
Lovely to see you. Chris, thank you for staying with us.
Thanks for staying awake.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The least I could do.
We will be back. Of course, Breakfast will be back tomorrow from 6. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye.